the integrated...
Ballot papers went out for the Labour leadership election this week. One of the names on it, Jeremy Corbyn. He's talking about the NHS.
Hospitals and local authorities about who's going to care for somebody rather than ensuring they're cared for as quickly as possible. That's not to say those who administer it don't work extremely hard. They do, but they're starved of resources and they're under stress. Health workers are the backbone of the NHS. But doctors and nurses are facing pay cuts year after year. Women are hit hardest by this as they make up more than 3/4 of all NHS staff. And as has been pointed out, for the first time in history, doctors were forced into an all-out strike. All the time I've been in Parliament, I've been opposed to privatisation of the NHS, and I voted against it with colleagues in the Parliamentary Labour Party over many years because we wanted to see a fully funded public National Health Service. The Tories have sought to privatise it. A Labour government will have to take the whole NHS into public ownership and make sure it remains there. The next Labour government will go further than reversing Tory cuts. We intend to deliver a modern health and social care service, fully publicly provided and fully publicly funded, by integrating health and social care into a single system so that everyone gets the care they need when they need it. We want to ensure that money goes to patients, not private contractors. The NHS will be given the resources to provide the world-leading service that we all deserve. Because the disgrace that your life expectancy and standard of care can dramatically change depending on your social class, your job, your race, your gender, or the area in which you live. You can take a bus ride across every major city in Britain, and as you go from the leafy suburbs to the centre, the life expectancy falls and falls and falls and only climbs again when you merge to the suburbs on the other side. You could take a journey on the Jubilee line in London, and for every stop going eastwards, it's at least a year off your life expectancy. That is how dramatic the health inequalities are. Illness is neither an indulgence for which people should have to pay, nor an offence for which they should be penalised, but a misfortune, the cost of which should be shared by the entire community. Diane was quite right in everything she said about mental health. Grossly underfunded. Many of the charities that try and help people going through mental health crises are themselves in crisis because of the demands for their services. Many people, sadly, suffer through a mental health crisis alone and in fear. And sadly, some, particularly young men, end up taking their lives as a result of it. We have to use the language of inclusion and the language of respect and the language of understanding that a mental health crisis is something that it could affect any of us at some point in our lives. We have to fund our services properly, not cut them, as is being done at the present time. I cannot accept that Britain, the fifth biggest economy in the world, we cannot ensure we have resources to take care of our mothers, our fathers and our grandparents. I refuse to accept that in Britain, the country which built the National Health Service, we cannot provide the social care everyone needs after suffering an accident or an illness. I refuse to accept that anyone, anywhere, does not deserve and should not expect that when they need medical care, they should get it. We're not fighting for luxuries, we're fighting for the basic hallmarks of civilization. Together we will restore the NHS. We will rebuild and transform Britain so that no one and no community is left behind, and the NHS is absolutely central to that principle. Thank you very much for coming today. James is going to chair this.
Hi, we now have time for a short press conference. Can I see who'd like to ask any questions? Angus from ITV. Oh, do we have a microphone?
I can talk about that. Do you want me to have a microphone?
It would be helpful, I think.
One microphone's coming.
Perfect, thank you.
We just checked before we're going to do it there, in the lectern.
Okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. Because both can you get both Diana and Jeremy in shot, because they both may answer?
Stand up.
Question two first.
It's from the ITV News, but I wonder if you can answer.
Do apologise for what's happening with the camera operator. We're not in control of the camera right now, but we'd really like to hear what Jeremy Corbyn's got to say in response to some of the questions from the press who have gathered there to talk to him about the NHS, and perhaps press him on some of the other stories that have been around in the media in the last 24 hours, not least what's been described as traingate. Let's listen in.
On the train issue, are you a liar? And Mr Corbyn, are you a lunatic?
I was hoping you were going to ask questions about the National Health Service, but sadly you're not. I deplore the use of that language in any context. I don't use it myself, and I don't use it today.
And on the train issue, what would you like to say about that?
The train issue is quite simply, I boarded a crowded train with a group of colleagues to travel to Newcastle. The train staff were wonderful, very helpful people, offered me and my team an upgrade to first class, which I declined. We journeyed through the train looking for places. There wasn't a place for us all to sit down, and so for 40 minutes or so I remained at the front of the train in the vestibule there, sitting on the floor, and then by that point the train staff very helpfully found a place because they had offered a family an upgrade to first class. And I'm very happy to discuss train arrangements with Virgin Trains at any time, but I have to say that it's the experience of many people on many trains. Ask anyone who travels in from Brighton every day what overcrowding on our trains is like.
What do you think drove them to release the
that.
CCTV, though? Do you think
Thank you very much. Can we...
motivation behind it?
There was no motivation behind it at all. I'm just suggesting that this is a press conference about the National Health Service, which is in deep crisis. And I was rather hoping that you would be able to concentrate on the National Health Service this morning.
Thank you very much.
Ben from BBC.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. On the health service, do you accept that there is a huge demographic issue for the health service? The population's getting older. You want a fully nationally provided health service. How are you going to pay for that in the years to come? And also on Europe, do you think the Labour Party should be trying to keep Britain in the European Union? And will you back the government when it decides to trigger Article 50 to begin exit talks?
On the question of Europe, first of all, and I'll come back to the other one, essentially the red lines that Labour is putting down are, firstly, that in the negotiations there be full access to the European single market. Secondly, that finance companies retain their rights to trade within Europe. Thirdly, that Britain remains inside the European Investment Bank. And fourthly, all existing EU employment rights and consumer rights and environmental protection regulations be retained. And lastly, that all current EU nationals who have migrated to live and work in this country are able to stay in this country without any change in their rights. Those are the red lines that we're putting down in those negotiations. Our Brexit monitoring and negotiation team is led by our Shadow Foreign Secretary, Emily Thornberry, and we will be placing that as our basis for representation and demands. I have also built good relations with the European Socialist parties in order to try to ensure we achieve those things, and I'm expecting to meet the Norwegian Labour Party, which is, and Norway of course is not a member of the European Union but does have a very close relationship with the European Union, so we can learn from them. However, a referendum did take place, a result was delivered, and I think Parliament has to work with that result and do our best to protect that which we've gained from Europe and to ensure that, crucially, our industries are able to trade with Europe and sell manufactured goods and, of course, services within Europe.
Do you think Brexit means Brexit? Britain has to leave the European Union, in your view?
Listen, then there has to be a relationship with the European Union, whatever the circumstances in the future. Our basis has to be these 5 principles in order to undertake that. People voted for a variety of reasons, but nevertheless they did vote. We have to do our best to protect conditions and protect the economy in this country. And on the National Health Service, the crucial issues are ones that a third of all contracts let by NHS England now go out to the private sector. that PFI debts are enormous on many hospitals, and a number of places have actually bought out their PFI because it's cheaper to borrow money through low interest rates at the moment and buy out a PFI rather than have a very expensive PFI debt which goes on almost ad infinitum. And what we'd be doing is instructing the Treasury to take control of the PFI situation to ensure that process goes on, so the debt burden imposed on so many hospitals across the country is removed, and that money can instead be spent on patient care and employing staff. It is a serious issue facing the majority of hospitals in Britain. Yes?
Darren McCaffrey here from Sky News. Jeremy, just getting back to this strain issue, I know it's not something...
Well, no, can we move on, please? It's discussing the NHS today.
Well,
we're discussing the NHS. Can we have an NHS question, please? Can we have an NHS question?
Jeremy, we live in a free country.
I know.
I'm entitled to ask you a
I'm
question.
very well aware we live in a free country.
So
I'm very proud to live in a free country.
So can I ask you
As are you.
I want to ask, not what you want me to ask you.
Well, we've called a press conference on the NHS, and I really hoped that you'd be able to find a question on the NHS, but if you can't, we'll take another one.
Okay, good stuff. Just because I think lots of people watching what's happened in the last 24 hours are not able to kind of tee it all together, to kind of square the circle in a sense, that you are on the train and the CCTV images show you walking by empty reserved and unreserved seats. So what, at 11, that was before you made that film saying the train was full. Why did you not sit in one of those seats?
Because they were reserved seats.
No, there was CCTV.
I'm glad you've watched the CCTV so carefully. It's a really important issue, this. Absolutely crucial to the future of the whole nation and the NHS. But let's get to the details of it. Yes, I did walk through the train. Yes, I did look for 2 empty seats together so I could sit down with my wife to talk to her. That wasn't possible. And so I went to the end of the train. The train manager, who was a very nice gentleman, came along and we had a chat about the problems of overcrowding and regulations on the train. And he said he would see what he could do, because after he'd already offered me a upgrade to first class, which I declined, he then very kindly did find some seats, and after 42 minutes I went back through the train to the seats that he'd allocated. We sat down there and we then conducted a lot of preparatory work for our visit to Newcastle.
Why do you think Richard Branson has decided to make this an issue, which he clearly has? Why
I'm
has he decided
very pleased that Richard Branson has been able to break off from his holiday to take this issue seriously with the importance it obviously deserves. I hope he's very well aware of our policy, which is that train operating companies should become part of the public realm, not the private sector.
Yeah, take some questions.
I do, by the way, look forward to meeting Virgin Trains to discuss these issues, because I do think that there are, even before we take them back into public ownership, regulatory issues that need to be discussed, and I'm very happy to do that, and the Virgin Trains have been in touch. I'm happy to meet them. We don't have closed doors or closed minds. Yes, of course. Diane. On trains as well.
No, on trains.
Come on.
I don't know anything about trains.
Everybody's got an opinion on trains.
I just wanted to respond to the question about how we pay for the NHS, given ballooning costs and the age demographic. And I wanted to repeat what I said in my introductory remarks, that we want to, partly in the medium term, pay for this size of patients. But in the short term, we want to bear down on PFI.
Jeremy Corbyn there explaining to our political reporter Darren McCaffrey how it was that it came that Virgin released some footage which suggested that he'd walked past some empty seats and having a fairly spirited tussle with our man about the virtues of free speech, as you heard there. We'll come back to that story. I just want to let you know in the meantime that the death toll in the Italian earthquake has now reached 37.